Hi, welcome to the Gamesplainer. I'm Jeff the Gamesplainer, and today I'm Gamesplaining March and April. So that's right, it is the top 10 for March and April. I realized I didn't really play that many games in March, so I just rolled it over. I will probably do the same for May and June, because at the moment I've only actually played 2 games through May, which feels really gross, and I want to be playing more. But that's where I'm at, just not being able to get together with people all the time. The other thing, just before I get to my top 10, is that if you have been watching my channel, a lot of you probably haven't noticed because you don't really care, but that's fine. But I have stopped doing the year on videos just because I haven't played pretty much anything from the last year since I've done the review of it, just because I don't have that much time to actually be able to play games. So there it is. I felt like there was no point in continuing the year on series. If I change my mind at a later stage, I may bring them back in, but for the moment, don't go looking for any more year-ons. Okay, so let's get to my top 10 from March and April. My number 10 game is Raiders of Scythia. Raiders of Scythia is a war game, but not a war game at the same time. It's very much Euro, where you're fighting against the game. You're not fighting against each other. And so you're racing each other to be able to get to a point where you can do a battle. I really like that. I think that's a really neat idea and a really good way to come at this kind of battling thought process without actually having to do any of the battling stuff that comes up in that type of game. But as I say in my review of this one, they've got to be really careful that it doesn't sell as a battle game, because Euro players aren't necessarily going to like battle games, but the battle game players aren't necessarily going to like this one because it is a Euro. So it's just something to be aware of. I actually quite like it. I think it's a worthwhile one. So please have a look at my Gamesplaying Gamestation for that one to get a feel for it. My number 9 game is the Castles of Tuscany. Now, the Castles of Tuscany is a newer version of Castles of Burgundy. You may notice that I haven't done a review for either. I'm actually currently waiting to be able to pick up my 10-year-on anniversary copy of Burgundy, and then I will actually do them back to back. So I'm actually holding that one back. It's been out for a while now. I've had it on my shelf for a while, but I'm really desperately trying to do both of them to kind of just keep them up to date and put them next to each other and see what they play like. But I actually really enjoyed Castle of Tuscany. I think it's a really wonderful game. Quite simple and easy to move your way through and to keep pushing through, but you've got to keep your eyes on the goals to keep things moving. My number 8 game is Kubitos. Kubitos is a race game. If you watch my Gamesplainer, you'll see that I actually say it's nothing like the video game Kubitos or Qubits from the 80s. My initial thought was that's what this one is, but it's not at all. In essence, you are deck building, but with dice. But depending on what each of those dice do, you'll want to get different types of dice in, and you can throw them all, and as long as you get something pictured on the dice, you can keep throwing all the stuff that shows nothing. As soon as you throw everything that shows nothing, so many sides of the die have nothing on them, if every die that you rolled throws a nothing, then you have busted. You're not able to actually use any of the dice that you've managed to claim. That's a really fun, finicky kind of idea, but in essence this is a race game. Do not forget that this is a race game if you're playing it. My number 7 game is Dust in the Wings. Dust in the Wings is one that I haven't yet done a Gamesplainer for. That will be coming in the next few weeks, so please watch out for it. The essence of the game is it's really similar, at least in the way you manipulate the board, to 5 Tribes, because you pick up a pile of the different colored butterflies from one square, and you need to move them out dropping one at a time, and the last spot that you place it is looking for numbers of butterflies. That's the essence of it, or numbers of different colored butterflies. That's the kind of vague essence of it. I quite enjoyed this game. It desperately did feel like the 5 Tribes, but with a different theme on it. But there's also a few other differences to watch out for. So it's a worthwhile one to look into if you haven't looked into it before. It's another one of all these butterfly games that came out in the last couple of years. that I've kind of been working my way through. I feel like I hope that this is the last one. Every one of them has been different, but I hope this is the last one just because I've had a lot of butterflies for the last couple of years. My number 6 game is Pendulum. Now, Pendulum is a Stonemaier game that came out, I think it was last year, or the year before, somewhere in that space. I played it to get it gamesplained, but then I haven't managed to get back to the table. I finally got it back to the table with 4 players from memory, and it was a really fun game. I'd only played it as a 2-player game. I enjoyed it as a larger player count game. I think that the game works better as a larger player count game because there's more people manipulating when you turn over the sand timers. So it's a really wonderful game. I don't think it necessarily needs the backlash that people seem to have been giving it, saying, oh, this isn't as good as Wingspan, for example. Yeah, sure, it's not as good as Wingspan, but it's better than a heck of a lot of games on my shelves. Stonemaier is a stable company, and everything they've put out I have enjoyed. Even stuff that has little quirks in it, it's like, oh, that's not quite balanced or whatever. I've enjoyed every game that I've played of theirs. My number 5 game is Galaxy Trucker. Galaxy Trucker appears on my top 10 list every time it's been played. And it's pretty much a guarantee to get into that top 10 list every time it gets played because I just really like this game. This is one of the earliest games that I owned. It's one of the earlier games that I was introduced to by players around me. And to be honest, I lost my first game of dismally. In fact, everyone at the table did really poorly. Like at the end of the 3rd round, which is the end of the game, everyone was kind of, oh, I'm 5, 6 money. The person who owned the game, 30 money. And I was like, that doesn't seem fair. But in the replay and the continuation of play, I'm now 30, 40, 50, 60 money every time I play the game. And I think that this is one of those games that really requires you to replay it. Once you've played it, play it again to really get a feel for it. I feel like with this one, I have a couple of times been playing it and we've stopped after 2 rounds rather than 3. Simply because of more people turning up or, oh, this game's going too long. So just, that's something to be aware of. So if you haven't seen Galaxy Trucker before, you're building your ship and then you're taking your ship out onto a journey to pick up goods and to get as much money as you can and get to the end. In essence, you just want to get to the end because you are going to get attacked by stuff. So there's building the ship, which is just turning over tiles and putting them onto your space until you've built it up to finish your ship. And then once everyone at the table has finished their ships, then we go on journey, which is on cards. In that first part, I've said this before, I will say it again, the experienced player should wait. I personally wait until the sand timer has gone through once. Once that sand timer is finished once, then I'll actually start building. Just to give the new players a chance, because otherwise the person who owns the game, who knows the game, just gets in there, bang, 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 the ship's finished, and then they're sitting around waiting for everyone else. At least that gives a little bit of a chance for the other players to get the good stuff off the table. The other thing I need to say about Galaxy Trucker, I've got the big box, as you may have noticed, which has all of the expansion material. It's so ultra rare for me to touch the expansion material. I tend to only fall back on the base game. As much as I would like to fall into using that expansion material more, the base game is enough, especially when you're on new players. It's only really necessary to go into expansion material if you've played the game many, many times with the same players. If you've got a new player at the table, don't overload them. My number 4 game is It's a Wonderful World. I really like It's a Wonderful World. It feels like it's kind of the newest version of Seven Wonders. I know there was a new version done, but it's using a really similar mechanism. If you've got a hand of cards, you take a card out or 2 cards, I think it is in this case, put them down. Once everyone's chosen their cards, flip them over, pass your hand on to the next player. They then go on to take cards, put them down. That's a really, really good thing. I really enjoy that. I think it's a really nice way to play. There's the added benefit of once you've got the cards in front of you, then choosing which ones you're actually going to build and which ones you're just going to take resource from. And it's really important to remember to take resource from some cards. Don't just go after every card because you are not going to make it. You need to have the resources to be able to achieve the cards. Once the cards are achieved, they become part of your machine and they are going to create resources. So yeah, look, I really like this one. Look into it. Have a look at my Gamesplainer if you haven't come across it before. My number 3 game is Carson City. Now, Carson City is one of these games that as you saw, I've got the big box version of it that has all the expansion material. I've got a few of them and I kind of tend to try to get them. But once again, even though I've got all the material, I tend to just play the base game version simply because there's new players. And whenever I'm at a table with new players, I need to play the base game for them to have an idea of the game. Once you've got an idea of the base game, then you can start expanding into the other stuff. But my problem is that I've always got someone who hasn't played the game sitting at the table. Simply because that's the nature of the beast when you've got this many games. And honestly, this is not a large collection, but when you've got this many hundreds of games surrounding you, you tend to find that you're playing with people who haven't played games that come to the table. There's going to always be at least one who hasn't played the game. And so I tend to just go back to the base game version, which is a great version. I really enjoy it. As you can see, it's my number 3 for the month. But there's like, I would really like to get onto using some of that expansion material. But here we are. My number 2 game is the Gallierist. So, the Gallierist, I talk about this guy often. This is probably my favorite of the Vita Lasada games. I really enjoy this one. It's just fun. Vita Lasada, for those who haven't seen my videos before, is probably my favorite designer. This is probably my favorite game of his. It's not my number 1 game, but it's my favorite game of his and he's my favorite designer. So it's always going to get really high on my lists whenever it gets played. I just really enjoy it. I found that myself and my wife play this one very regularly, and we tend to play it really similarly each time we play it, but it's still a really good game and just gets the mind crunching a little bit on every time it comes out. So I've never once gone, oh, the Gallierist, not again. Never once had that thought, because there's so much stuff going on the board that just it keeps you involved all the time. And my number 1 game for March and April is Merv. So with this game, you're actually going around a square in the middle of the board. You're choosing 1 of 5 spots, and then you're choosing 1 of the 5 things that's below you. You put a marker on there, and that gets you some resource, and if you've got more markers in the row, so later in the game, you get more resources from that. You can then use those resources for many, many different areas on the board. I really like that. It's so simple, but it's extraordinarily difficult at the same time. And this kind of hits my wheelhouse with just that ease of playing. It's probably similar to the Gallierist, because Gallierist, you've got 4 choices. Once you choose 1 of the 4, you're choosing 2 choices. And that does a whole bunch of stuff. Same deal. We're just choosing a whole bunch of stuff. And the beauty of this game is there are only 12 turns that you're going to have in the entire game. But you can do a heck of a lot in those 12 turns. So the video on that one should be coming out this weekend. So look out for it. Have a look at it. If you haven't come across Merv before, please have a look at it. Have a watch my Gamesplay and Gamesplanation to get a feel for it and see why it's such a good game and why it deserves to be on your table. So look, I will leave it there. That's my top 10 for the last 2 months. If you have any comments or suggestions, please write them below. If you have any games that you would like to be gamesplained, please shoot me an email to thegamesplainer@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter @thegamesplainer to keep up to date with the games I'm playing. Subscribe to my videos to keep up to date with the games that I'm gamesplaying. And until next time, enjoy gaming.